There is a fighter jet in modern aviation that did something no other combat aircraft had ever dared to attempt, a jet that appeared to defy gravity itself, as if physics were nothing more than a suggestion. This aircraft could rise straight into the air like a helicopter, tilt its nozzles forward, and leap into jet flight in a single smooth motion. Then return to hover over a battlefield like a silent predator ready to strike. And the strangest part of all is that this incredible machine was born not from ambition or vanity, but from sheer military fear and necessity. So the question that has haunted historians and engineers for decades is simple. How did the Harrier II, a subsonic aircraft with no traditional runway and no conventional limitations, become one of the most disruptive fighting machines ever deployed? And what secret engineering breakthrough gave it an ability that even superpowers once believed was impossible? Stay with us, because the story you are about to hear will unravel the hidden origin of this jet, the wars that tested it, the weaknesses that nearly destroyed it, and the legacy that continues to shape modern air combat to this very day. Before we dive deeper into the unbelievable journey of this aircraft, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss our high-intensity aviation documentaries. The story of the Harrier II begins not in a factory or a laboratory, but in the cold tension of post-war Europe, when NATO commanders realized that in the event of a sudden Soviet attack, the first targets to fall would be their runways and air bases. The fear was that entire fleets of fighters could be wiped out while still parked on the ground, leaving the alliance defenseless in the opening hours of a war. This terrifying vulnerability forced engineers to imagine an aircraft that could take off from anywhere. A road, a parking lot, a forest clearing, even a ship smaller than an aircraft carrier. That idea would eventually lead to the creation of a fighter jet that broke every physical rule that traditional aircraft designers believed in. When British engineers began experimenting with vertical flight, the concept seemed almost absurd. How could a jet weighing more than 10 tons lift itself straight into the air without spinning out of control, burning itself alive, or stalling its own wings? The answer came from a revolutionary engine unlike anything seen before: the Pegasus. A turbofan engine with 4 swiveling exhaust nozzles that allowed the pilot to redirect the entire thrust in real time, giving the Harrier not only vertical lift, but the ability to hover, stop, or even pivot in mid-air. This astonishing control opened the door to a new form of aerial maneuvering, one that would later be known as VFTOL vectoring, in forward flight, allowing Harriers to perform sudden direction changes that completely baffled enemy pilots and radar systems. But the first-generation Harrier was only the beginning. As military needs grew, the United States Marine Corps realized that the unique concept could become the ultimate frontline fighter, one that could operate directly beside ground troops instead of far away on vulnerable runways. So the Americans partnered with British engineers to create a new aircraft, not just an upgrade, but a total reinvention. This aircraft, the Harrier II, or AV-8B, introduced a redesigned fuselage, stronger composite wings, and a digital cockpit. That combination allowed it to carry heavier payloads, fly longer missions, and perform more aggressive attack roles, turning the aircraft into a compact but terrifying strike platform. What truly set the Harrier II apart, however, was its relationship with geography. While other fighters depended on long, pristine runways and complex logistical chains, the Harrier II could deploy from the most unexpected locations. Ships without catapults, remote desert clearings, improvised forward bases, even damaged airstrips that no other aircraft could use. This meant that enemies could bomb every major runway in a region, and the Harriers would still rise into the air ready to fight. Their unpredictability became a weapon in itself, because if you do not know where an aircraft can take off from, you cannot predict where it might attack from. The real test came in the Falklands War, when earlier Harrier models shocked the world by achieving an extraordinary kill ratio against Argentine aircraft, successfully shooting down more than 20 enemy fighters. This victory transformed global perception of the Harrier, proving that an aircraft once dismissed as a strange engineering experiment was capable of dominating real combat scenarios. The Harrier II would later build on this legacy, taking its place in some of the most intense conflicts of the late 20th and early 21st centuries. During Operation Desert Storm, the AV-8B Harrier II became one of the most crucial close air support aircraft in the entire coalition. Its ability to operate from small amphibious ships in the Persian Gulf and from makeshift desert bases allowed it to maintain constant pressure on Iraqi forces, even when other aircraft were grounded by weather distance or runway limitations. Harriers flew thousands of missions, destroying tanks, artillery units, radar installations, armored vehicles, and supply convoys. They became the eyes, teeth, and claws of frontline Marine units, enabling rapid response to troops under fire and providing the kind of low-altitude precision that traditional fast jets often struggle to achieve. The Harrier II would see further action in Afghanistan and Iraq, where rugged terrain once again proved why runway independence was priceless. The aircraft could remain on station for extended periods, providing overwatch for ground patrols and striking insurgent positions with accuracy and speed. The psychological impact alone became a battlefield tool. When a Harrier was overhead, enemy fighters knew escape was nearly impossible because the aircraft could maneuver across tight mountainous regions in ways that conventional jets simply could not. Yet, for all its brilliance, the Harrier II carried heavy flaws. The same engine that made it a legend also made it a maintenance nightmare, requiring extensive manpower, constant inspections, and an enormous logistical effort. The aircraft was notoriously unforgiving during takeoff and landing. A momentary lapse of attention, a gust of wind, or a misjudgment of thrust could send the jet tumbling out of the sky. Many losses were not the result of enemy action, but the brutal physics of vertical flight. The Harrier II was also subsonic, lacking the raw speed and climb rate of the F-16 F-18 or MiG-29, making it vulnerable in high-intensity air-to-air combat against modern fighters. Still, the Harrier II was never meant to replace those jets. It served a completely different philosophy of warfare. While fourth-generation fighters battled for air superiority in high-altitude engagements, the Harrier II fought a war of proximity, flexibility, and access. It brought jet power directly to the battlefield rather than waiting for perfect conditions or distant runways. That alone made it priceless to the Marines who relied on immediate air support more than any other branch. Countries such as the United States, the United Kingdom, Spain, and Italy embraced the Harrier II, not only for its capabilities, but for the strategic independence it provided. It allowed nations without large aircraft carriers to operate true jet fighters from smaller vessels, expanding their naval aviation power at a fraction of the cost. As aviation progressed, the Harrier II eventually gave way to the F-35B, a newer aircraft that inherited its VSTOL concept while adding stealth sensors and advanced flight systems. But no matter how advanced the future becomes, the Harrier II remains the aircraft that proved the impossible was not only achievable, but combat effective. Its legacy is not just technological, but philosophical. It showed the world that innovation does not always mean speed, altitude, or stealth. Sometimes the greatest advantage is the freedom to operate from anywhere at any moment, under any conditions. If you enjoyed this deep exploration of the Harrier II story, make sure to subscribe so you never miss our upcoming aviation documentaries where we uncover the hidden truths behind the world's most extraordinary aircraft.